Could you briefly introduce yourself and your role in short drama industry?
Yes, my name is Meagan Johnson, and I actually have an Instagram account on Instagram, obviously, and I love to review vertical dramas. And I also have become um, a little bit of an audience opinion leader. I've gotten onto the industry side quite a bit. I've had a lot of FaceTime with people in the industry, just representing the audience and maybe what they want, and also what I want as an audience member. But I love this space. It's growing so fast. It's been fun to watch it in the past years since I've been involved. So that's me. You can see me at Real Drama.
You just joined last year? Well, that's not a long time, just a year.
I started watching about a year ago, and I started watching after my father passed away. I think a lot of people, when you talk to a lot of audience members, they usually come to this space in some point of trauma in their life or grief, or at some point in their life, it's usually connected with something similar. And so, yeah, I just came to this space. I was on Facebook. I was really grief stricken, losing my dad, and it's like an ad popped up for one of the verticals on Facebook, like everyone else. And I was like, what is this? This is kind of odd. So I watched a couple and then I was like, oh, and then it popped up again. So I watched a couple more. And then it was like, if you want to watch more, download the app. I'm not going to download an app to watch a show. I'm not doing that. Oh, but I downloaded the app and then it got to the paywall and I'm like, I am not paying to watch this. Oh, I paid to watch it. And then it started this whole cycle and I think I watched 100 in the first month. So that's kind of how I came to watching vertical dramas. My pace has definitely slowed since then, but I think it was from this place of grief and then I just became really fascinated with kind of like why are these so popular? What is it about this world that draws us to it emotionally? I'm an American Studies major, and I love cultural studies. I find them to be super fascinating, and I also love psychology because I majored in psychology too. So it's this weird mashup of like psychological exploration and like cultural nuance and why are we here? So I stayed for so many reasons, but I still love verticals. I still love watching them. Oh, and then I started my account. Who's making fun of these online? These are hilarious. These are so campy and fun. And I went online and no one was making fun of them. I'm like, I'm not going to start an account for verticals. And here I am a year later and full on career change, everything to participate in the growth of vertical dramas.
How do you define short drama? Since you watched,
Oh,
I
yeah.
heard there were more than 1,000, right?
So I think I'm not as good. Some of my friends have some of my reviewer friends that like to review vertical dramas on Instagram along with me. They have spreadsheets where they keep track of every single vertical drama they've watched. I do not do that. I have no attention span for that. But I've probably watched at least 500 in
Mm.
about a year. So I've watched a lot and I still watch a lot. There's just such a world to be in. How do I define vertical dramas? So this is how I tell my friends. So it's imagine a telenovela and a Hallmark movie had a baby. And that to me is like kind of the standard vertical genre format. You've got the high intensity of a telenovela, you've got the slaps, you've got the campy, over the top acting, which of course our actors do amazing at. You've got just this close up, like a soap opera is a lot more dialogue, a lot more framed in on your face. So it feels very familiar from that telenovela standpoint. But then you've got Hallmark, where you've got these repeat tropes that just keep, and a lot of repetition mainly, and a lot of familiar faces. Like people like Bo and Hope are still on Days of Our Lives, and Bo and Hope were on Days of Our Lives when I was in high school. It's like, so it's a lot of repeat, a lot of repetition, a lot of just familiarity. Because from that Hallmark side. And it's a very comforting place for people. And then also there's that heightened cliffhanger, kind of heightened emotion, that those stories that just pull you in because they're so over the top dramatic, but then also grounded because there's so much that resonates when it comes to when you boil down the actual stories into what they really are. There's so much that resonates with us as a human being and a person as who we are and what we long for and what we want. And so that's kind of how I would define vertical dramas. I don't know if that's From my perspective, that's what I've seen in them. So they're very fun. I really enjoy them.
Right. So you just mentioned you resonate with you as human. What kind of things that resonate with you? Can you give me some examples?
So I think one reason that I think a lot of women my age are drawn to them right now, the format as it is right now, is because I could write a whole dissertation on this, legit. Why are we drawn to vertical dramas? But I think one thing that I miss from when I was younger is I missed that weekly drop for my favorite show. When it was network TV and you had to wait until Thursday night to watch This Is Us or Parenthood or whatever drama was on Thursday nights. And you kind of like immersed yourself in this world. And even though you didn't get to watch it every day and binge like you do now, you got immersed into this world. And it was close to where you were a little bit. Everything was just a little bit more heightened, a little bit more dramatic. But it's like, and then you had to wait until the next Thursday and see the next one. And we've lost that with binging. And I love to binge, believe me, I love to binge. But sometimes I feel like we've lost this feeling of being in a world, right? And verticals, even though across the board, microdramas, verticals, they're all slightly different. I know a lot of people in the industry are like, if I have to make one more billionaire CEO vertical, like they all follow the same, that home, going back to that Hallmark like base. I feel like they create a world that is so different from my own. And even though each one is different, I can go into this world and it just feels different. It's just this different form of escapism that you don't see anywhere else. And it's really fun. So I am the median age of a woman who would watch these, right? Exactly the target audience. And I feel like it's the perfect escape for me. The other thing that resonates with me, and I think resonates with a lot of people that I've talked to from audience members I've talked to, is the black and white is so clear. We live in a world that's just so nuanced and so gray. And as you get older, things get more and more gray. It doesn't get more clear, honestly. The more you know, like the worse it gets. And so sometimes I think, especially since basically 2008, when we've started to see a major shift in our cultural decline and just like so many different aspects politically, so many things, especially here in the United States, like I feel like people want security. They want clear lines, and verticals offer that to them. We've got a clear villain and we've got a clear good guy, this billionaire CEO, the alpha werewolf, the mafia don that bursts in and saves the girl. And that is so resonates with people. Maybe not as much for me, but I can see that being so resonant with a lot of the people kind of in the space nowadays. That's why Star Wars was so popular because you had, the Sith Lord and you were the good guys in Star Wars. I can't remember. The Jedi Knights, and it was so black and white. So I think that those are kind of some of the reasons why they really resonate with people. Those can be done at a higher level. You can still black and white kind of villain, good guy. You can do that with more nuance, but that's basically the structure. And I think that's a big reason why they have such a pull.
What's the core or essence of short drama?
I think right now, the current genre, the essence, oh, this is a really good question. I think right now, I would think that it really is about safety right now. It really is about going into this space where we see the heroine who often is sadly like in an abusive situation or is coming from being poor or, desperate, kind of like that desperation storyline, and being saved. And I think that right now, that's kind of one of the core essences that draw a lot of people to this space. Again, I could write a whole dissertation on why they're so popular right now, because they just tap into something so innate in us as a whole, especially like my demographic that hasn't been spoken to in a long time. Women, especially, we get tossed all over the place. If you look at the history of women, especially in the United States, everywhere, we jerked around. We're kind of like the whipping post culturally. And it becomes something where I just want some security. I just want something that just makes me feel like I can have a happy ending. And so right now, I think that is probably one of the deepest kind of essences. Plus, dopamine. Like we all love our dopamine hits, and verticals definitely deliver dopamine.
You just mentioned that women are not being spoken of.
Yeah, so like as a woman, like I'm a educated woman. I am home with my kids mainly for I've stayed home with my kids for about 25 years now. I have a 24-year-old. I have four kids. And I did a interior design business for probably about 15 years on and off, but I supported my husband, which is a role that I chose. Like we chose that purposefully in his career, and he's been very successful and very proud of him. And so just from that standpoint, but then also I feel like culturally in our country, we fight for women's rights, but there's been a lot that hasn't caught up yet. Like we're finally getting to a point where men are taking on tasks at home more. And we're talking a lot more about mental load that the women carry still, even though they're both working. There's this shared responsibility when it comes to kids and home, but women still carry a lot of the mental load of their home, of society. We're a lot more empathetic. And now, we've talked a lot about gender lately, and that's kind of been thrown in the air. And rightfully so, it's a discussion we need to have. But sometimes I think women just want to feel safe. That's why Hallmark movies were so long for so long. My mom loved Christmas Hallmark movies. I love them too. And they just are safe. They're just happy endings. There's always some drama, and the girl like is gonna lose her pie shop or her grandma's pie shop, and then it like gets saved somehow. Like that type of like cathartic storyline, it just brings you just a little modicum of security, and sometimes in a world where you just don't feel secure, for a lot of reasons.
You've watched many short dramas from different apps, I assume,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
can you share some thoughts or maybe three of
I think right now I have probably five apps on my phone right now, vertical drama apps. I probably only have subscriptions current right now for probably about 15 of them.
That's a lot. Okay.
But I do rotate monthly subscriptions. So I kind of like think of the apps in like three different like kind of tiers or buckets. So there's a few apps that tend to focus more on quantity and more on kind of like user churn. Like they don't really focus on making the best verticals. They just kind of want to spin them out, and you can tell that they're doing a lot of testing with their storylines. Like I can see the ads, in the storylines. Like I can tell that they are trying something new here in this spot, and it's like one big long ad. Like I can see that in some of the apps. And then there's a few apps I feel like that really kind of strike a good balance between that testing and to see what's going to hit next, what plot device are we going to use? Because I kind of view like a vertical drama also as kind of like a little mini pilot. You know how many pilots get launched at the beginning of every season when it was network TV? Vertical dramas are just all little mini pilots, and we want to see which one hits and where we get the clicks on each one. So some of the apps do a good job balancing like a really good vertical, but then you can kind of tell like, oh, it's not so great. And that's fine. I mean, that's the game that they have to play. And then there are a few apps that I just feel like have my trust. Like when I go into that app, I know I'm going to press play and I am pretty much going to love whatever they offer me. And
Can you name it?
yeah, Drama Pops is one. That one's out of Turkey. Love Drama Pops. I like just consistently giving me good stories. Not a lot, not huge on quantity. Totally fine. Shorts, the app, I think they're out of France. Great, and they're like heartfelt, kind of like more rom-com style. Almost everything I watch in there is amazing. Another one that I really love is I really like Vigloo and Candy Jar. Like those are the other two. So those are kind of like more, I don't even think those apps are on like the top download list. Those are the ones that I will sing their praises because they have earned my trust. Like I trust them. There's a lot of apps I don't trust anymore because for a lot of reasons, I feel like it's like, yeah, it might look good on the outside, but then you get on the inside and it's just like, what is this story? Like it's just a whole garbly gook of like like tropes that they just threw together on a page and like it's like pick a trope and he just like mixed it all together in a pot and like said, here's a vertical. And you're like, that makes no sense. Like that just wasted an hour and a half of my time. Or they're very violent. They've become so violent. 2025 has become increasingly the gratuitous violence. I don't mind a slap here and there. I don't mind violence if it's purposeful in the plot, if it actually serves like some type of, but if it's just to move the story along or become like a cliffhanger, so I just keep going, if it's just dragging me through, I'm done. Like I can't, I like, so some apps have started really doing that more recently, and there are a lot of audience members who are done with it and they have lost trust in what they're watching, which is really sad to me because some of them have been around since, you know, when did English verticals first start? That was like 2020, 2023, I think. Some of my friends have been watching since then, and now they don't want to really watch unless we kind of get on some of these apps that are doing it a little different, a little bit more elevated, a little bit more curated. Not perfect, not prestige, not A24, but just better, just consistently better. So, yeah, those are my favorite apps right now.
You said when you watch those ads, you think it just gives you some expectation, right? And then when you watch this short drama, you feel like it's not.
Sometimes I feel like I'm just a number on of the apps, or I don't even care about what I think anymore because I already subscribed. And so, well, you're already here. So, is this where you were going? Like, is that what your question was really leading towards? Like sometimes I just feel like they don't care to keep me around. I guess that, and I'm not saying like it's all about me. I'm like the only one, but I am the consumer, you know? And so at some point it's like, I'm not want to just be a number or like thrown off like oh she already paid us like let's not care anymore like sometimes you watch a vertical and you get past the paywall like the first 10 episodes are amazing you get past the paywall they don't care anymore frustrating as someone who's actually already paid to subscribe too so I mean I don't want this to become a dump fest on some of these apps because I know that this is such a young space and it's so new and everyone's just trying to test it out and see what works and so I've purposely chosen not to sit and rant and rave about their choices because I get it. In the end, there's a bottom line, and that bottom line has to be served. And so, you know, I understand it from that standpoint. But I do think moving into 2026, one of the biggest things that apps should be focused on is audience trust and maintaining trust and earning their trust. I think that's going to be a challenge and something that they should work on.
Most of the shows are still dominated by romance or CEO billionaire stories. So have
Yeah,
you
they are.
seen, yeah, have you seen any non-romance short drama? If so, what are they about and why made them work?
You know, that's a really interesting question. I haven't seen a lot that weren't romance. There was one that was just made recently about sisters, and there wasn't really a big romance arc in it. And I feel like it landed pretty well, but it didn't get a lot of watch. You can go outside of the romance world. And I think some of them could work out really well if they focused like a psychological thriller could go outside of the romance world. Like because you could play so much with that dopamine and that those like emotional hits. And the romance could be there, but it could just be kind of like a little side character. There was a new one that was just called Love in Oblivion on My Drama. Oh, I love My Drama too. I didn't say My Drama. Oh my goodness. I'm
They
sorry, My
did.
Drama. I love you, My Drama. Ammo. I love them. But anyway, Love in Oblivion was really good. And that was like kind of a psychological thriller slash female kind of spy like kind of put the pieces together. So good. And romance wasn't the center point. It was her trying to figure out what had happened to her and why she had amnesia and like what had happened to cause her to fall down the stairs. And that exploration I found to be personally like fascinating. I love exploring humanity and in all of its forms. And romance, of course, is just one vehicle for that. But so, yes, I love like psychological thrillers. I think dark humor could work really well on verticals if you think of like Barry. Did you watch Barry on HBO? Just like kind of a psychological damage and like bringing that to the forefront and like playing with characters who are a little bit more extreme, a little bit more campy, a little bit more outside of reality. Like that form could do really well. I know revenge plots can get really big in verticals. Um, and those often do have kind of a mix of love in them, right? But I could see someone playing with that format really well and kind of exploring more of like a woman kind of like leaning into her intelligence. Like I love the ones where the women like really, it's not just revenge, I'm gonna go out and like destroy you from the front. They like come in from the underside and like take them down. Like, like that's the best storyline. So I think that one could work really well, especially if we flex women at the front and women really using their prowess and their intelligence and their power, like really leaning into how manipulative we can be in a very good way, and I think that that would be a really fascinating subject to explore. But yes, the billionaire CEO, it's just, it works. I can watch a million of those and I get tired of them. I don't know why. I just think they're so campy and fun. There's something about like this girl, like from a poor town, and she's like poor and she needs help. I don't like the medical desperation tint of it, but like she just like wants to be saved by someone who's really rich. Like that's just like, please, yes, like offer me a Mercedes and couture and all the jewels in the world. Like who doesn't want to walk into that world? Like, and then the women's like they're demure and they're like, no, I can't take that. And I'm like, take it all. What are you doing? Like, so yes, the billionaire CEO. I know the industry gets so tired of those, but the audience does not.
Maybe some
Yeah.
variations based on the CEO trope.
Yeah, you can do so much just with idea in general. I just like it's just such a different world that they've created.
What kind of story do you personally enjoy, and what kind of story don't really work for you?
The billionaire CEO as kind of like a filler, as like the one that just kind of like fills in the gaps when I just want to escape. There's been a new kind of feel that's come out, especially on like the space, the stories that have a little bit more of like a layered characters that reveal over time. And you kind of don't get everything right at the beginning. You just kind of are drug along with a little bit of mystery and wondering. And you can do that with the billionaire CEO storyline too. But I find like when you lean in a little bit more to the intelligence of a story and a little bit of mystery instead of giving me all out at the beginning, I really enjoy that. I really like werewolf stuff. I think they're really fun. I love Mafia, but I love Mafia because Mafia can become world building in its own way. When you lean into kind of the Mafia world and the danger, and especially when the woman kind of rises to become like a Donna, or, she's the one who's like, teach me how to shoot so I can protect him. Like, I love those kind of empowered lines where the women can really step forward and become something, even if they're in that situation because they were kidnapped or they had to marry the mafia don, whatever the storyline is, just seeing a woman be able to rise and be autonomous and choose something and make the best of her situation to me is like so empowering. So I love those storylines that lean into it. So maybe not a genre per se, but I just anything that kind of like treats women with autonomy and gives them some sort of feeling that they're in control of their lives. They're not being so reactive to everything. And then also just treats me like I'm a smart human being. Like, and again, it doesn't need to be like most intellectual, like, I'm not looking for like a documentary. I just want to be like, I love a little bit of mystery. I would personally love to see more like spy noir, kind of leaning into like Mary Higgins Clark short story arcs, that we have like maybe the same woman, we get a new drop and she's kind of solving a new mystery and maybe she falls in love with a new man every week. It's like a new man she just spits out and moves on to the next one. Like something that would be so fun. Just anything that gives me a little bit more depth and realism, you know. But I kind of will watch, I don't almost watch anything. So now let's get to what I don't watch. Revenge plots are not my favorite. I don't lead my life with revenge. I don't have tap those emotions very easily. It's hard for me to connect with that idea. They often tend to be the more violent verticals when it comes to like women being the plot is her just being abused. So I tend to not press play on the revenge style. There's only been a couple that I felt have really managed the revenge arc really well. And again, it's those women who are like quiet and then they go in and they just like suck the life out of out of the guy who like destroyed them. Those are the best. And then I also don't watch anything with kids. I don't watch any verticals with children in them. I don't think verticals manage children well. I don't feel like they are treated like a vertical that has a child usually doesn't, they're more like a plot device than they are like a human being. And as a mother with four children, that just really like bugs me. So those are kind of the two that I stay away from. Anything with children and then anything with revenge, which kind of cuts out like 50% of like the vertical space right now, the current vertical genre.
Children is a big, we say in China, we say genre, like cute kids. It's a genre in China. So basically,
Yes.
sometimes their parents were separate in the beginning somehow, and this kids just kind of, this one mother reunion with their biological father and the kid breathing together. Those kind of stories. So you still don't like this kind of story, right?
No, I just trust anything with kids in them right now. Not, I mean, I have seen a few where the kids aren't like they just end up becoming like the villain ends up using the kid to get to the female lead. They like induce an allergy in the child, or that came out recently and the daughter was in a cage. And I just won't go there anymore. I mean, I do know what you're talking about. There are been a few in the past that have been really cute, and I have watched those ones where it's like they run up and they're like, "Daddy," like, um, but it's turned into something to me that feels exploitative. And so I just tried to avoid any ones with kids from a general standpoint. Some friends who, if they see an animal in a vertical, they will stop watching because they know that that animal will be used as a plot device and it's really hard on them to watch that. And so you take that innocence and you destroy it. For some women, I think that that's like they want to see the redemption or they want to see the person who does that get their payback, but I just can't watch it.
I can understand you don't like kids being used as a tool, right? Or put
Yeah,
in the cage
yes,
for sure. But
yes.
for if they performing happily in a short drama, do you like to watch
I
that or
just
not?
don't trust when I see like the short, because they don't make trailers very well for vertical dramas. So it's kind of hard to see where it's going. So for me, my friend like reviewed it and I'll ask my friends, I'm like, okay, were the kids treated in this one? They're like, oh, this one's Megan safe. And so I kind of have some friends who will kind of help me figure out which ones to watch, but I just trust that it's not going to happen
I
anymore.
got
I don't like to signal to the app that I will watch because I don't know at what point does an app, if I stop watching, how does the app know why I'm leaving? Do you know what I mean? Like, how does it know? It knows, like, they don't share any of their numbers with us and what they do with the numbers and how they process the numbers. And I don't even want to signal to the app that it's something that I approve of, you know, for now. If there's an app, like I wrote a vertical because I have a slate of like 8 verticals and I love them. And I'm working with some script writers to help me turn them. I wrote one with a child in it that I love, and I love the child. And the child is like a human being, like a character in the story, not just a device. Actually have purpose, and there's an arc, and they have like some growth, and trying to just find that balance and treating them like humans.
you mentioned about trailers. So how do you think trailer is it's important to you or
I can usually tell from the poster if I'm gonna press play or not. And the title. Like everyone hates the titles of vertical dramas because of the SOE. Like I know why they're titled, but I can tell almost without a doubt if I see the poster and see the title if I should press play or not. You can just get a sense for what it's gonna be like. And so trailers, some of the apps do trailers and they do them really well. Um, I don't necessarily need a trailer personally. I know that with some of the apps that create so much content, for them, that's just like one more step that probably doesn't pay off for them. So I understand why they don't do it. But yeah, I don't need a trailer necessarily. I like my friends because we all share what we like and what we don't like. And we all are very opinionated and we all like different things, which is very, very to share in that community, like what everyone loves. And see, just to explore that part of the community.
Let's pause for a second. Imagine you're in a crowded marketplace. Vendors selling cakes, jewelry, all kinds of things. And you are one of the vendors trying to sell a story. What kind of story will you tell? And more importantly, how do you keep people stop listening and actually pay? That's the narrative logic of short drama. I explain this in my book, Short Drama Writing 101. Write what platforms want. It's available on Payhip, Amazon, and Google Playbooks. Now let's back to the video.
You've watched a lot of short dramas, right?
I
But
have.
for someone who's new to short drama, do you think it's necessary to have a trailer for them?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it would depend. I think it's absolutely necessary because I know when you're in the app, you kind of just like, I just look at the poster and then I find the next one. And they do a good job. In some of the apps, they have a little button you can press for you. They have a little like kind of for you button where they'll play just like the first couple episodes and you can kind of swipe through those and see what feels good because you can kind of get a sense. But yes, I mean, it is a new world to enter into. If this is new to vertical dramas, it like all the different apps, it's like it has its own language, almost. And so being able to navigate that is kind of hard. So yeah, trailers might be helpful, especially if you've got like an app like Drama Pops that doesn't release as often. Yeah, do a trailer, like let me see what you're doing.
You also mentioned about data. So if you have the chance to ask platform founder, what kind of question based on data will you ask?
I think the last little kind of like I don't rant very often, like I said, because I really do believe in just supporting the stuff I love. I don't like to harp on the stuff I don't like. But the last thing that I kind of ranted about on my Instagram account was what exactly are you tracking? And if I get on the app as someone who's paid for the subscription, does that matter more to you or less? If I am on the app and I am kind of navigating through and pressing, like, are you following where I stop and where I start? Um, and how are you using that data? So if I stop because a child comes on the screen in that episode, if I pull out because I'm like, oh, I don't watch anything with children, how do you process that? Like, how do you process me leaving and not returning to watch? How do you process if I get all the way to the end? How do you process that? Do you think it's because I liked it? Why do you think I got to the end on that one? Ask how you separate between someone who's been around for a long time in your app and someone who's new. That would be definitely a question I would have. Like, do I count still? Even though I've already paid you, I paid for a yearly subscription on some of these apps because you watch enough of them, it's worth it. But then there's some I stop watching. Like I haven't opened a couple apps in a long time because I don't trust them, right? Because I don't want the violence. I don't want to give them any reason to keep creating gratuitous violence, I should say. Because there is a line between exploitation and exploitative violence and clickbait violence, and then violence that does like kind of propel a story. So, but yeah, that's kind of what I'd ask is like, how do you process that data? What does it translate into what you're going to create next, what you're going to fund next? Because everyone says the audience chooses what gets funded next, right? But that's not always true. I am choosing from what you chose to create. I'm not choosing every time I open an app, it's not like a free market. It's not like I'm choosing from every vertical ever created. I am choosing from which new ones that you're choosing to supply. And I'm a lot of times, or sometimes, I'm choosing from the least worst option. It doesn't mean every time I press play, it's because I'm like, oh, this one looks so good. It's like, oh, this one looks okay, I guess. I always put it on the audience that I'm the one choosing. I think that that's such a false narrative, and it gives some of these apps an excuse to keep amping up the exploitative emotions, the drama, the violence, the plot lines that just are so bizarre and so inappropriate from like my mommy heart and like just a humanity standpoint. They keep saying that's what the audience wants. And I'm like, I had asked them in an app, do you really think that's what I want? Do you really think I want to watch this? Like, do you really think that's what I'm asking to watch? Because I have a feeling 90% of the people who are watching these verticals, and I can tell you from in all of my connections, they don't want that. But that's what the app is offering. And some of these app watchers who come into this space and they've subscribed, they can afford one new app every 6 months. They're stuck with what the app has to offer. And, if they just keep ramping up the violence, then you're like, okay, I guess I'm just choosing, this one will be okay. As a subscriber, I do feel a little bit overlooked because I know a lot of these apps just really rely on churn and they just are like, you paid your money, you're gone. I'm just to the next person. A lot of it does get pushed on the audience because I feel like we are the ones signaling through what we watch. And a lot of us on Instagram have tried really hard to not watch the ones and not even press them, the ones that we feel like are going too far. I do not want to see a pregnant woman be beaten until she is like miscarries. Like, I'm sorry, no.
Are you going to watch a short drama specifically because of a certain actor?
Yes, that is a good question. I do really follow the actors. I really do. Um, I feel like a lot of us, when we come into this space, we kind of cling to certain faces that we really like their delivery. We like how they lean into their characters, how they fit the format really well. Some of them just really play in the format really well. And I can tell you when I first started watching vertical dramas, I would find a new actor, woman or man, that I really liked. I'd go on their IMDb page and I'd find out what else they were in, and then I would follow them like across apps, wherever, because I just like to see them flex in all these different ways, and I found it kind of fascinating. The actors are like they have become their own brand to a lot of us who watch vertical dramas. They have like loyal followers across the board. Like the fan awards that Jen Cooper does, I know who's going to win them because of how big the fandom is from for some of these actors and actresses. And a fascinating phenomenon, this world that kind of allows these actors to be so famous in this space. It's kind of fun to watch them kind of grow into that too. Um, but yeah, I do. I press play on familiar faces. Some of the that have been in this space for a while too. I know they're going to some getting more offers than they are doing auditions. And once they can get to a point where they get a little bit more picky with what they choose to produce and be a part of, some of the actors I will follow because I know they're going to do a little bit more like elevated content in the space. They're going to choose the ones that are a little bit more clean, a little bit more wholesome, a little bit more, better storytelling, more in-depth storytelling. And so that's kind of fun to follow them and watch them rise to that point where they can start kind of being more picky.
How do you see the AI?
I am not a fan. I've watched a couple verticals that are made strictly through AI, and I know some apps are leaning into it. And I mean, if they can figure out a way to do it and find the right audience, I say have it at. I don't necessarily love it. I think AI is an amazing tool. Like I use it in my daily life all the time. I have like really bad ADHD and ChatGTP helps me keep all my thoughts organized. Like, you know, um, and it's been really helpful for me. I see it as like if you can figure out how to make production faster, make your editing faster, as it for it replacing a human face, that's not my favorite. There's just me personally. I know some people don't mind that. So I'm not want to see my favorite actors be replaced by AI. I feel like actors should be respected for what they do because they're human and AI is technology and it's really so far from being able to like completely replace the human, especially on screen. Like you can, and especially dramas where there's so much emotion in these and they're right in their faces. And I've watched a couple and I'm like, wow, they really are just so flat. It just doesn't deliver quite right. It's kind of a fun arena, I think, for some people to play with. But as for it replacing vertical dramas, yeah, I just can't get into it. If they just want to do it for like cartoons, like anime and stuff, but not like the real human looking ones.
Do you think female characters in short drama could be improved? If so, how?
Yes, greatly improved. And it's coming. It's changed quite a bit. Um, I feel like again, I think I had mentioned before about autonomy in a female woman and a woman and as the female lead. There's a lot of arcs out there that do a lot with her just being like a whipping post basically the whole time. Like she has no control over what is happening to her life. She's very reactive the whole time. And she's also just kind of lets it happen. And I actually have a scale when I rate my verticals because I review verticals. And so I have a scale about it's a female autonomy. And I really would like to see, even if the woman comes into this space with from some desperation, some point. Right now, of course, medical desperation is huge, which drives me absolutely crazy, but that's where we're at. It's getting better. But as long as she can flex and choose, and it's not just completely like the whole plot just dumped on her. Everything is just dumped on her. As long as she can kind of muscle out of that and make her and forge her way. I resonate with that so well as that's what I would do. You know what I mean? Like I would make the best of the circumstance I am in. I would push forward. I would stand up for myself. I would stand up for those I love. Um, and they are getting there. I do feel like there has been a huge change in how women are represented in verticals. It's been slow, but I do think it's getting there. And I know for a long time the reason that they kind of painted such a soft woman, basically, kind of more weak, is because it's really easy for you to put yourself in her place. You know, if she doesn't really have much of a personality, if she doesn't have a lot of nuance, it's really easy to say, oh, I could be her, you know, like I could be her. That's easy for me to do. But I think there's so many women in this space that watch verticals that are so intelligent and want more nuance. They want more real characters, real motivations that are motivated something beyond just saving my mom from dying, you know, like that they actually have dreams and goals and they're trying to reach those dreams and goals. And yeah, that is something I'd love to see more of. There was a vertical that was just, it was actually from Drama Pops called The Marriage Deal. And the woman came in and she got married and she kind of had to get married. It was one of those situations like a forced contract marriage. And she ended up manipulating him the whole time to basically leave and get out of it. And I loved it. She was actually in front of everything. She was the one making the decisions. Even though things didn't look like it was, she was the one who was manipulating the space to work for her. I loved it. I thought that was such a great play on a woman in a vertical. Did they still end up falling in love in the end? Of course they did, you know, but it was just so cool to see her kind of flex and be independent and not reactive, but proactive in her life. She wasn't just like a strong character to be a strong woman. She was actually had some trauma and she was working through things. And that was very real. Like that really resonated with me that she actually, and it didn't take much to write it in there. I mean, it's not like that vertical was 80 episodes long instead of 60. You know, they just did something a little different and it worked for me.
So, as a woman in short drama industry, have you experienced any particular advantages or challenges?
You know, that's a tough one. I'm kind of straddling the audience and the industry right now. And it's been a very interesting place for me to be because I have my toe in the industry. I'm watching it. I'm like seeing how it's developing. I think it's fascinating. I'm loving that. I love like people are listening to me, which is just so flattering. Like as a 47 woman who like has no history in the entertainment sector at all, but who loves good stories. And so I feel like I have had an advantage as a woman because of that, because of my position and where I'm coming from. Um, I don't know if it might look different if I was already, you know, in the entertainment industry and, you know, kind of where you're at, or some of these great producers that I've met who are women, like on set, they might be a different story. But like for me, it has been, I feel like because I'm a woman, I am here right now because of my vantage point, because I'm between this audience, the audience. Again, I am like the median age, I am the person of who watches. So I do feel like I have an advantage that way. And more people should listen to the audience members who are in my position because I feel like there's a lot of us and we're very, very smart. The one thing I love about this space so far is that it has had open doors. There has been a lot of crossover, and it's so different from anything I've ever seen in the entertainment industry. And I hope it stays that way. because it really does make it unique right now, especially um, to see this crossover between the audience and the industry. Yeah, I think it's really exciting.
Before the interview, you mentioned about you were invited as a supporting role in a short drama and
Yeah,
consultant as well, right? Can you share your experience?
it was like last October, Shorticle reached out to me. Shorticle is an app based in Israel. Great, great guys, like really enjoy them. They reached out to me to have a cameo. And they're like, "Do you want to be in a vertical?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll come on set. Like, I'd love to come." No, they're like, "No, you want to be in the vertical." I'm like, "Oh, heck yeah, I want to be in the vertical. That'd be so awesome." So yeah, they gave me the script. I had a couple different roles. I'm not an actor. It's not anything I've aspired to, but they treated me like a queen on set, and I was able to like be in a vertical, and it was such a cool experience. And I feel like good for them for kind of like thinking outside the boundaries, and again, like crossing that path between audience and industry, and kind of my friends were ecstatic to see me in a vertical, and that was a great experience. So I had one line in front of the cliffhanger, like in front of the paywall, and then like two or three after. I have a confession scene with a priest. It was called Forgive Me, Father.
Also give you the script before, right?
An NDA. I got the script before. He asked me about input on the ending, a little bit of like a checkpoint. And again, it's always like I don't expect them to take my advice and implement it all, but I think just yeah, having that voice is really from what I've heard from everyone I've talked to, like is invaluable. The input that an audience can give.
Also, you have a like short drama critic group, right?
Yeah, I started my Instagram account last April, and I started just reviewing verticals, but also kind of making fun of them because I mean, they're kind of ridiculous. There's some things in there that are just flat out, I think they're hilarious. Like they make me laugh so hard. Some verticals that aren't meant to be funny, I find them to be really funny. And so I just was like, I'm going to start the site. I'm going to start poking fun at them. I'm going to start writing reviews. I ended up after about a month noticing that there were other review sites on Instagram, and I just asked them, "Hey, do you guys want to like make a little review crew, like a little club, a little vertical review crew?" And I in the beginning we had about 9 accounts. I think we're down to 8. Now we have 8. We are collectively become like the critics of this space. There's some other review accounts out that have come up that I would love to bring in to the vertical view crew, and we might get there where we expand. But yeah, we've kind of become like a critic's voice. We have production companies reach out to us all the time asking to promote their verticals. Apps love it when we write a review and tag them. We've had an outside source, realreal.com, and they publish our reviews, the ones that they like and the ones we submit. Um, we are going to be doing a Critics Awards show, an Instagram show, where we're going through nominations right now, just as our little crew. But yeah, I mean these 8 sites, these women, and we've got one man, super intelligent, very well versed in the vertical space, just top tier of. I would rather have so many conversations with them about verticals than anyone else in the space. I'm just the audience members, I mean, we know so much, like, and from a different perspective, and they are so great. So we're called the Vertical View Crew, and my site is called Real Drama. It's very, very fun. I
What's their age range? Like, what countries are they
all
from?
mostly female are following me, and I've got a lot of men too that I really like talking to, like via DM, and mostly female. A lot on Instagram I find like are probably a little younger than me, so I am like in my upper 40s, and I find like a lot on Instagram are maybe a little more younger. On Facebook maybe a little bit more older, but Instagram especially, yeah, like women my age, in like very intelligent, lots with degrees, lots with a lot of really great things to say. But yeah, I mean, like the Instagram community is a little bit smaller than the Facebook one. The Facebook community is huge, but not as vocal or united as the Instagram community is, but still kind of fun to bop over there sometimes and see and check in with some people there. But yeah, so it's probably about my age, a little bit younger, and a lot of women mostly. Yeah.
And from different countries, you can
Yeah.
see.
Oh, all over. Singapore to Australia, lots in Australia. Got some Scandinavian friends. I've got lots in Europe, lots in Canada. I would say it's probably a 50-50 split between foreign countries who follow me and the United States. And most of the people that follow me from the United States are like the actors and industry people, and a lot of the fans are from all over the world. It's a really fun to be in. I've had people ask me to come to Turkey. I've had people ask me to come to Australia. Philippines is a huge. I have a lot of friends from the Philippines too.
Where do you see the future of short drama heading to?
I do really think there's always going to be a lane for what we have now, what we currently have, like kind of these more campy, romance-driven vertical genres. I think if an app was really smart right now, I know there's going to be a lot of upheaval in 2026 with a lot of new apps coming on, a lot of people trying to test out kind of what do different formats look like? How can we pivot away from style, three arc storyline? Can we pivot away from that and still keep people, and that's going to be really fun to watch that develop over this year. But I do think there's going to still always be a lane for the current genre that we have. And so if I had I'd probably lean into it instead of try to mess with it too much. Um, but I do see a big crossover between some of the apps, even I can flip my phone horizontal and I can watch it horizontally. I can watch the vertical horizontally, which goes against the vertical. But I see a lot of that happening. There's a new series coming out, the movie coming out, and on short form content on Instagram, they've been releasing drops to like lead up to the movie that are vertical. I mean, they're not vertical format, but they're using it for advertising. So it's almost like they're creating like a prequel to the movie, and then it'd be cool to see a vertical like it'd be cool like watch the prequel on a vertical on an app or on Instagram or wherever, and then go watch the movie in the theater, and then go back and they do follow-ups that are vertical. The options are endless for verticals. I think mostly right now it's just finding new audiences to watch them, which I know everyone is really desperate to do. And so like I think that's the biggest challenge is to get new eyes on it so that we can expand into different genres and explore all the ways it could go. And I think that's really exciting to see how that is all going to play out. I feel like it's still so young, and that's so enticing and exciting about that. And I think like my one little plea would be for us to as an industry just lean into the creator aspect of all of this, and to not create a zone where we are so gatekeeping again, where independents and creators are cut out from the whole process, the writing to the distribution to everything. I feel like keeping those doors open, to me, we have a chance to rewrite kind of the entertainment industry as a whole. And a big part of that is keeping those doors really open. And that to me is like exciting to see Instagram now messing with kind of a creator button. They're kind of dropping in you can put your episodic verticals that you create, basically verticals, short dramas or whatever you create. To see that happening is really exciting. So yeah, I feel like just keeping those doors open and keeping the creators and giving incentive for everyone to create, because being able to be involved in this space from my perspective has been freeing and so exciting, especially the writing part of it. And but yeah, that's kind of my little hope for the industry. Like, can we please just keep the doors open and find ways to help everyone grow together?
Psychology about short drama.
Why are we watching? Just from a basic standpoint, the reason that women especially are drawn to vertical dramas is, especially around the world, especially globally, it's not always that it's the man in your life who has put you down. We all have circumstances where we are coming from some type of like trauma, or it could be culturally. We feel that we're not able to express ourselves the way we want. We feel trapped. We feel burdened. It could be like the government. There's so many different ways that you can feel that, right? Like your family culture. It's not just violent. It's not like you were just abused by your parents, which is always so sad if that's the case too. But so I think like one reason we love vertical dramas is because we're saved, because someone saves us and they don't ask questions. Like there's something so enticing about that across the board, especially for women, who feel helpless in all the different ways. So anyway, I have a couple different, especially why women might like violent verticals and why they might be drawn to that too. I have a whole article on that too.
I once read a Chinese article. It just analyzed about hundreds of Chinese titles because normally the titles are the core story, core idea,
Yeah.
right?
Yep,
And
yep,
it
yep.
analyzed the social anxiety of Chinese women and men.
Ooh, influence of like the Eastern culture coming into our Western entertainment world right now. Like,
Chinese
yeah.
story and they translate and localize it.
There's still some stuff that's a little clunky. Sometimes, like the medical stuff bugs me, like the medical desperation. I'm like, we have insurance here. And here in the United States, if someone is injured, the hospital has to help them. They have to help them. There is no, can you pay for this? So sometimes, like that plot line is still so prevalent. And I'm like, I just like roll my eyes every time. I'm like, oh, because it puts the woman in a position of desperation because she wants to save her dad or her mother or her child. I get why they use it, but still, it's like, oh, can we get rid of that plot line, please? It's like the last stronghold. But yeah, we have better consent now. Consent in here in the States is really important when it comes to sexual relationships, and it's getting better. Yeah, the localization. Some of those early verticals, you're like, ooh, that does not work well here in the States, and not because we're better. It's just different. We're just different. We just mindset about certain things. So, but yeah, fun to dig some of those storylines and where they come from and where their roots are.
Some Chinese story, I don't get it at all. I don't know why people are watching that. I'm trying to understand some
Yeah.
toxic relationship.
Then there's also the storyline where the woman tries to leave her husband after like 3 years because he's just been such a jerk. And then because she leaves, he's like, "Oh, I love you." And then all of a sudden he like becomes a different man and she takes him back. Like those ones bug me too. No, that's just not very real. Like he's not going to just turn around in a week and become a different person. But like I don't need real. Sometimes I just want to escape. That doesn't mean I don't want nothing. That doesn't mean I don't want just like some garbly goop that doesn't make sense. I want a story, but again, I don't need like Apple TV or like A24 dramas or the next film festival circuit winner, something so human and deep. I just want a good story that makes sense in the end.
I actually talked to a female director, Chinese one. We discussed
Yeah.
about this. So our theory is probably those for China, the origin story for Chinese women
Yeah.
living in some rural areas. They're not very well educated, so they have to spend their life with their husband,
They
although their
do.
husband didn't treat them so well. So they kind of it's
Exactly.
their escapism, right? Somehow.
100%.
Yeah, I think that's the reason. We discussed this because I don't get it as well, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because I like and that's why it's funny when I hear of people really kind of, getting down on some of these plot lines that don't make sense to them or the increased violence. And like, why would someone watch something so violent? How could they watch that? I'm like, well, I kind of get it. Like, if you were in, like, I have a friend that I talked to at length about this who came from an abusive relationship, a physically abusive relationship with her husband. She finds them to be cathartic. She like likes watching them because she likes living that experience again. It helps her heal. Some people it triggers them. Some people it helps her heal. And she's like, she's like, that was for a long time. To say that these violent plot lines aren't real or people getting bullied a lot aren't real, that really negates like probably 70% of people's lives who have been bullied a lot, who have lived through violent relationships, who have been abused by their parents, like, so to throw them all out because I've been so blessed and privileged to not have any of that in my life is backwards. I think that that's wrong. So there is a purpose, like you said, there are some of these storylines to exist, and the reason they're popular. So yeah, Doesn't mean I need to watch them, but there is a purpose in them, you know.
Shall we encourage those?
The question. That is the question. And like I've often thought because of some of the women these that I've met a lot of women who watch these who are maybe a little bit more easily to influence, like and they really kind of cling to the actors and they have like parasocial relationships with the actors because they've attached the actor with being saved, you know, like that's a very real thing in this environment. And that's where apps kind of get exploitative sometimes because they take advantage of these women who are needy, right? And not necessarily maybe like from a financial standpoint, but like just needy in their heart, needy in their spirit, right? And maybe there is a way we can address some of those issues and that neediness in a more holistic, wholesome way for them. Not that we're trying to manipulate them or take advantage from of them in like the backwards way, but there's got a way that we can raise them up and help them feel better about whatever circumstance they're in, um, and not feed into just constantly them reliving the same loops over and over. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because that's
Yeah.
something they experienced before and they're familiar, right?
Yes, and it's
Parapsychology, I
familiar, but how can we help them not keep reliving, like how can we help them actually like heal or grow past whatever that was? Now you were saying like in some of these circumstances they can't leave their husbands, right? Or in some of these countries they can't leave the government that is oppressing them or however they're feeling, and they might not be able to vocalize their oppression. They might not even know why these verticals resonate with them, which is fine. It's not saying that they're not smart or intelligent people. It's just some people don't think about entertainment the way I think about it, you know, from like that psychological, cultural standpoint. But like some of them just might just not know why they're escaping. But how can we help them feel more competent and comfortable and grow into who they are, no matter what their circumstances, you know? And feel more empowered. Not empowered as in like take down the man or I'm going to leave my husband, but empowered just in their own journey, in their own healing, and in their own peace, right? Bring them to a point of peace where they're not having to replay all the time. I've thought about that before because that's sometimes why I get frustrated with these bigger apps that tend to just keep amping up the drama and amping up the violence and amping up and saying the audience wants it, you know, like kind of giving pushing it back on us. I feel like that's exploitative. I feel like they are taking advantage of people in their emotional vulnerability. Not maybe not everyone is, but for at some point someone's got a responsibility for the content they're putting out there. Someone has to. I feel like as an audience member on some apps I've lost control. Like they are not listening to me. I can put all the reviews I want on Instagram. I can rant and rave everywhere and they don't care. You know, that's fine. I don't have to pay for that. I There's a lot of other apps doing what I want and I'll support those, you know. But yeah, I do think that there's a point where we could come where we're actually caring for the audience and like thinking about them as people and not just numbers.